Where you start in life should not determine where you end up, and yet too often it does. There are literally billions of people around the world who have inherent talent, but never the opportunity to fulfill their potential. That's a tragedy of monumental proportions. And this situation is only going to get worse as tech advances accelerate job displacement and increase the need for retraining. Indeed, the World Economic Forum estimates that 1.2 billion people are going to need retraining in the next decade. But based on current funding and approaches, we're not even going to be able to retrain half that. That's 600 million people untrained, likely unemployed, likely suffering, certainly not achieving their potential. The scale of the need dwarfs the solutions of the present. So how do we currently finance education? Savings? Well, not accessible for most, especially those living paycheck to paycheck. What about loans? Well, many can't access it due to poor credit history or are unwilling due to rational risk aversion. And even if they are willing and able, often it leads to long-term crippling debt to the tune of $1.7 trillion in the US alone. What about government funding? Often governments are budget constrained, and often they're politically constrained as well, needing to focus on the short term, which leads to underinvestment in things like education, which have long-term benefits. And sometimes governments, when they do fund things, it's not always the most effective. What about scholarships? Great, but not scalable. And there have been other approaches, more recent approaches, that are pushing in the right direction that have been beset by problems. With income share agreements, there's adverse selection, payment enforcement problems, and the fact that investor returns still come at the expense of the people we're trying to help. With impact bonds, there's often high transaction costs due to ad hoc metrics and generally low government value propositions. The fact is, none of our current approaches can achieve the scale and the impact that we need. Is there a better way to finance education? This was the focus of my PhD research at Oxford and Princeton. And what I discovered is that this situation, this tragedy, is avoidable. It is possible to finance high-quality education at no cost to individuals, no cost to governments, without needing philanthropy and at scale. Now, that might sound too good to be true, but it's not. In this talk, I want to explain how we can do that, why it works, and what it'll take to get us there. So let's begin with the how. Ladies and gentlemen, in order for us to achieve what economists call the first best, the ideal situation, we need a new approach, which we can call the Forte model, standing for Financing of Return to Employment. Here's how the Forte model works in a nutshell. First, investors cover the cost. They fund high-quality education, such as vocational retraining, for disadvantaged individuals who would not otherwise have access to those services. Second, those individuals who receive that education, they don't pay anything at all. Nothing now, nothing in the future, no chance of exploitation. But that training, by its nature, leads to greater employment, greater incomes, and therefore greater government income tax revenue. And third, governments simply pass back to the funders a percentage of the increase in the income tax revenue they receive that's attributable to the retrained individuals for a set period of time, such as 70% of the increase for 3 years or 50% for 5 years. They just pass back a portion of what they otherwise would not have had. We can think of it as Laura's future taxes paying for Laura's present training. This is a mutually beneficial situation. It's a true win-win. For individuals, it's a way that they can learn new skills, get back on their feet, gain financial freedom, support their families, and have the dignity that they deserve. It's a way of us ensuring that cyclical shocks don't become structural realities for people. It's a way of enabling lives to breathe easier. For governments, this is a way that they can help constituents at scale without worsening the budget and never paying for something that doesn't work. They can reduce unemployment, close skills gaps, develop tech hubs, increase investment, grow and diversify the economy. They can get people off the bench and increase labor force participation. It's good from a cash flow standpoint because governments get the extra revenue first, and it's good from an economic standpoint because the increase in revenue, the increase in benefits always exceed the costs. Benefits exceed cost by design. That's how it works. Governments just pass back what they otherwise would not have had. As for investors, whether foundations, impact investors, or others, this is a way that they can both do good and do well without a trade-off between the two. Investors can invest in disadvantaged individuals, but with the creditworthiness of governments. Indeed, the way investors make more money is by doing more good, by making sure the education actually works and actually helps people and actually leads to good outcomes. Investor returns don't in any way come at the expense of the people we're trying to help. Indeed, even morally agnostic profit seekers are incentivized to do what's in the best interest of humanity. That's how it should be, and that's what's needed. Why? Because goodwill's great, but it's not going to cut it. We need to tap into the largest pools of capital in order to solve problems of the scale that's needed. I like to think of all this as trickle-up economics. Let's help those who are struggling and disadvantaged, and then benefits flow up through the system. And when investors get their money back, they can use it again and again and again on an ongoing, repeated basis to have cyclical impact. As for education providers, including great nonprofits and social enterprises, this is a new, better business model for them, a way they can become financially sustainable. Prior to my current work, I started a nonprofit called 180 Degrees Consulting that does volunteer consulting for nonprofits around the world. And what I discovered is that there are thousands of great education organizations out there, run by people who are incredibly passionate and who work tirelessly, but they can't scale up because they rely on ad hoc grants and donations. This is a way that they can get more funding to scale up to help more people, irrespective of those individuals' capacity to pay. This really is a win-win situation. It has the scalability of debt with the impact of scholarships. Why do we use uplift in income tax as a metric here? Well, it's a very good metric to judge training effectiveness because it captures a lot of the things that we care about. Does someone have a job? Is it a quality job? Is there job retention? And so it helps to align incentives to ensure that everyone is pushing in the same direction. It's also data that we already collect, already measure, already have systems in place to verify, which helps to reduce transaction cost and increase trust in the system. And as I said before, tying payment to revenue means we can operate at a greater scale. It ensures that it makes economic sense for governments. Now, I don't have time to go into it now, but there are also ways to know the counterfactual income tax and to avoid cream skimming, to ensure that access is widespread and governments just pass back what they otherwise would not have had. Overall, the research suggests that this is the most scalable and sustainable model of talent development. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds good in theory, but does it work in practice? Yes, even better than the research suggests. We've done pilot projects of this all around the world, from Australia to Colombia to Costa Rica and elsewhere, and the benefits to all the stakeholders are significant, far greater than what is standard. But it's the individual stories that matter the most. People like Christian in Colombia, who for 9 years cycled over 60 kilometers most days delivering food to people. Regardless of whether it was rain, hail, or shine, he did that to try to support his family. One day he had a crash when a car door opened, and while recovering, he came across Forte and now works as a data scientist. And he told me that finally he can dream. Finally, he feels like the universe of possibilities has opened up. Or Danny, who was working shift work at a hotel in Australia, trying to support her 2 kids, her twins, and now has a good job on a good salary with regular hours. Or Paula in Costa Rica, who was unemployed for over a year and now works at a big IT consulting company. These are the real heroes, and those are just some of many, many stories. It's clear that the Forte model works. The World Economic Forum has also endorsed it and recommended it to countries as part of their country financing roadmaps. Now, the applications of the Forte model are not just training, although it can finance a lot of different types of training, from tech boot camps to language training to training in advanced manufacturing for the semiconductor industry. But it can also finance longer forms of education, such as for the millions of girls in India who don't have access to high-quality high schooling. And it can be used to address a lot of different causes, from youth unemployment to gender inequality. Indeed, the pilot in Costa Rica was 100% focused on supporting disadvantaged women. We had 6,000 women apply for the program in the first 2 weeks, even though it's a small country. It can also support veterans who might be unemployed despite their service. It can help address environmental sustainability by training people for the green jobs of the future and reskilling people in unsustainable industries like logging or mining. And it's not only education. This can even help with healthcare. It can do things like finance eye surgery for the 33 million people in the world with avoidable blindness. After all, if you can see, you're more able to work, earn income, pay tax. I don't know of any other model in the world where you can help 1 million blind people see, investors get their money back, and that in no way comes at the expense of the people we're trying to help. Not only eye surgery, but cochlear implants, life-saving drugs to keep people alive longer. The list of possibilities is endless. So that's how it works, but why does it work? Well, conceptually, there is a wide range of human capital investments where the aggregate benefits of those investments exceed the aggregate costs, and yet they don't occur. They should occur, but they don't. Why is this? Well, I'm going to simplify the economics here a bit, but it basically boils down to 3 things, which I like to think of as KMI. Not KPI, KMI. First, knowledge. We need to know which investments the benefits exceed the costs. And this is a challenge. Often when governments try to allocate funding, they don't know which training providers are the most effective. Every training provider is going to say, pick me, I'm the best. There's information asymmetry. Second, means. We need a means of capturing enough value so that the benefits exceed the costs. A challenge here is that often the costs of education are borne by one stakeholder, and yet the benefits are dispersed between many stakeholders and over time. And so for any one stakeholder, their benefits might not exceed their costs. And finally, incentive. When funding is allocated, is maximum effort exerted to ensure the greatest outcomes? Sometimes when governments give funding, unfortunately, training providers cut corners and do the bare minimum, and so we don't get the outcomes that we should. Forte ensures KMI, knowledge, because education providers and their investors have a better idea of whether their own services are effective. Means, Forte answers the question of who pays, not from any current pool of funds, but from the increase in the positive externality that arises. Forte enables that positive externality to be internalized, to be attributed to and appropriated by the entity that creates that value, so that the benefits exceed the costs, so that those investments happen in the first place. If we don't have means, we don't have scale. An incentive, because with Forte, payment is based on an outcome continuum, not a one-time input. Now, Forte is many things. It's a new way of financing education, a way of solving student debt, a new business model for nonprofits, but it's also a new type of public-private partnership. This is neither privatization nor public provision, but a third, better way. It envisages a new role for governments as conduits or facilitators of tax transfers. Put it this way, what is the government better at than the private sector? Well, one thing is knowing incomes and collecting taxes. So let's use that. Let's use what the government is best at and use that to unlock private sector innovation and investment. This is also a solution that's non-partisan. For those who are more left-leaning, this is a way to have high-quality education at no cost and no risk to disadvantaged populations. For those who are more right-leaning, it's fiscally responsible, doesn't worsen the budget, taps into private sector innovation and investment. Not only is it a new type of public-private partnership, it's also a new way of ensuring quality when it comes to education, and a way that better fits with the world that we're in. The old way that we ensured quality was by controlling inputs. Develop a curriculum, approve it, teach to it, a one-size-fits-all approach. Allocate funding, hope for the best, spray and pray. But that doesn't work in a fast-paced world of AI and lifelong learning. You see, the world of education is shifting from a one-and-done model to a cyclical model of training work, training work, training work. And we need the way that we drive quality to reflect that. We need to be responsive to industry demand, tailored to individual circumstances, and with incentive alignment. The way that we drive quality in that setting is by paying for outcomes. The era of controlling inputs and paying for inputs needs to give way to the era of paying for outcomes. And finally, Forte is a more effective model of philanthropy. It's 7 times more effective than standard scholarship endowment approaches. You see, the usual way that scholarship endowments work is you have an endowment, say 100 million, you invest it, and you give away about 4 or 5% of that each year on scholarships. So it takes 100 million to give away 5 million in scholarships. With Forte, we can fully recycle the capital in about 3 years, meaning that with 100 million, we can give away, we can spend 30, 35 million on scholarships each year and keep the 100 million as 100 million. In other words, helping 7 times as many people with the same capital. It's a system for ongoing impact creation. And so if you're a philanthropist or a family office that wants to maximize your impact, here's a way to help 7 times as many people with the same contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude. In order for this change to occur, it needs to be a collective effort. And so to everyone involved in government, education, and public policy around the world, let's not resign ourselves to the inevitability of student debt, of paying for inputs and generating waste, of budget constraints that limit scale, and of millions without access to high-quality education. Instead, let's embrace a new, better way of financing human capital, one that avoids budget constraints, always makes economic sense, and ensures the first best, one that protects vulnerable individuals, enables governments to not worsen the budget while having an impact, enables investors to have a double bottom line, enables great nonprofits to scale up, aligns incentives, pays for outcomes, ensures quality in a fast-paced world, generates 7 times more impact when it comes to philanthropy, and can mobilize the world's greatest resources to solve the world's greatest problems. If we do that, then we'll succeed in reducing human suffering and unlocking human potential. Thank you.